Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining our Dion Leadership webinar series today. Our topic today is going to be creating work-life alignment, a product showcase. Joining us today is Steve Dion, founder and CEO of Dion Leadership, and learning and development practice leader for Dion Leadership, Terry Schell. And now I'll pass it on to Steve to get us started with today's presentation.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today on our webinar series. This is a little bit different format for those of you that have joined us before, and we decided to do a product demonstration for a new product that we have in response to a webinar we did in October where we were talking about this topic. We kind of teed up that we have some application opportunities for you to bring this into your organization. So today, we're going to just talk a little bit about sort of why we created this and then move right into a product demonstration. And I'm here joined by Terry Schell, who was really the mastermind and architect of the program. Welcome, Terry.
Thank you,
So, Steve. I wanted to, I guess, start here by saying that, most of you know us as a broad-based leadership and OD firm, and that we teach in-person and virtual leadership development programs. And we do a lot of individual coaching, team development, and culture work. Well, we've been really passionate about this space of creating better workplaces and really employee experiences that create well-being, flexibility, healthier manager relationships. So through this whole COVID pandemic, we realized that there was an opportunity for managers to really learn something new and to really focus on this area. So we not just only created a e-learning course, but you'll see through this materials, we really created a brand. So as I go through this, you'll see a look and a feel, and we see this as the beginning of something that will be really important for many years to come. And I'll show you what we mean as we go through this today. So we're going to spend about 10 minutes kind of talking about and setting up where this came from, what the guts are behind this, and sort of the academic research of this. And then we're going to toggle right into our LMS and spend about 40 minutes to show you the product as a learner would experience it. And I also suggest that during this, feel free to put in the chat if you have any questions. And then at the end, if we have time to go back to some of the modules and pieces that we didn't get a chance to see, or we can answer the question at that moment, if it makes sense, we will do that. But we wanted to start first with a couple of poll questions, as we typically do. So the first thing we wanted to get a sense of from sort of the audience here is, does your organization have an active program that supports work-life alignment? Like, are you working right now on areas, not necessarily manager training, but things around increasing flexibility, preventing burnout, promoting well-being, whether it's training, whether it's policies? So if you could answer kind of yes, I do have a well-established program, kind of we've been working on this a lot, or we're starting to think about it sort of, or really this is not in our purview right now. It would help us kind of understand where you're coming from with us. So we'll just leave that open for just about another 20 seconds here. Okay, let's see. Abby, we ready to show some results here? So Terry, we have most people in the sort of category here. 56% of folks have a new or limited kind of program here. 22% not at all, and 22% yeah, so pretty much a bell curve. Okay, that's interesting to know. The second question we have for you really quickly is, does your organization train managers as part of this effort? What we've found is some organizations are really focusing on programmatic activities with this, but are you specifically saying, we know that managers are an important part of this and we're doing things actively to equip them to help with work-life alignment? Okay, let's see what we're finding out there too. Oh, okay, interesting, Terry. 75% of people are not really doing anything supporting managers, even if they do have a program at all. and 25% are. So for those of you that are, I encourage you to put in the chat what you're doing related to managers' work here. You know, we're showing you today one possible, puzzle piece to help solve for these problems, but we'd love for you to share within the community what's going on. We're passionate about this idea of well-being, about flexibility. We know it's important, and so feel free to chime into this. Okay, let me tee this up a little bit more. So over the last 6 months, I personally have been speaking a lot, been asked to talk on bigger webinars about the Great Resignation, about the Big Quit, as they're calling it. We've been doing some writing and blogging about this. And so one of the things we wanted to understand is this really sort of a short-term sort of post-COVID phenomena, or is there something more to this? And as you can see with the statistics on the screen here, that we do know that people are quitting their jobs at a very rapid rate. We also do know for sure that burnout is very high. Well-being is a focus for everyone. I mean, I don't think I can watch any HR feed and not hear something about well-being, work-life balance, burnout. I mean, it's really popular and it's really there. And one of the other things we, I guess, realize with this is we believe that it isn't just a short-term issue. This is about, and I've heard this term, sort of the great realignment, that there is a realignment between the worker-employee relationship, and that workers are expecting, demanding, and it's now a condition of employment to have flexibility. Where before it might have been, 50 years ago, it was, I just need a safe workplace, and OSHA came in to help figure out what does that mean. Now it's really about, I need a job that's going to fit into my life, and I'm not willing to compromise that at all. So with that, we wanted to focus on this. So we believe that flexibility is really the new employment currency. And, our kind of piece of this as a leadership and OD firm is to help think about the skills and mindsets that leaders bring to the table. And so with that, we partnered with some professors, which we'll unpack really quickly here, to create this particular program. Terry, you want to kind of tee us up?
Yep. Yes. So that brings us to the product we're going to be showing you today, creating work-life alignment. And as you can see from the subtitle, this is specifically what we address. We introduce 4 essential strategies to help employees reduce work-life conflict, increase engagement, and improve well-being. And that's not just a subtitle that we came up with because it had all the buzzwords in it that Steve just talked about. It's because we created a project based upon research that specifically shows that these 4 essential strategies do indeed reduce these points and other points and contribute overall to the well-being of not just individuals, but their families and of organizations. And we chose the word alignment, work-life alignment, on purpose. We've all heard work-life balance, for decades. And we wanted to reflect a more modern approach to this. And we look at alignment as having your responsibilities and your time and your priorities match up. There are times when your home and personal priorities need to take precedence, and times when your work priorities take precedence. But it's finding that alignment so that you are able to give your attention, your time, your efforts, and equal or in proportional measure to the current status of that situation, because these things are fluid. As we addressed in the actual program, where you are in life, where you are in your personal situation day to day, these things can be fluid. So we want to just look at where we're adjusting and searching for alignment. So that became the name of our product.
And in this product, we can see that we created this as an e-learning program. And for those of you that know us, we are not, the e-learning experts. So what we decided to do is we partnered with a recognized leader in developing high-end e-learning content. But as we looked at this material and what learners needed, and in this environment, we really felt that the content was best suited to be unpacked and experienced by a learner in a digital format, both for the reasons of consistency for the person facilitating this and being able to use, as you'll see as we go through this, video narrative exercises. It really lends itself very well to be done in an e-learning course with an application exercise later, and we'll get into that next. So where this came from is renowned research from really 2 decades worth of research from 2 professors that are social science folks. And Dr. Ellen Ernst Kossek was actually a professor of mine, gosh, I hate to say it, almost 30 years ago in graduate school. And at the time, she was already studying women's studies, diversity, work-life conflict issues. Well, we've kept in touch over the last 30 years. And she and her partner, Dr. Leslie Hammer, have been doing work and research through a National Institute of Health grant fellowship, where they identified these 4 specific behaviors. So during the beginning of this pandemic, Ellen and Leslie came to us and said, hey, we have got this great findings. We know what's going on. We need a partner to help bring this to organizations in a way that's practical. Managers, manager training, behavior change. So that's where this partnership came from. So they've been written up in this academic research in lots of places, as you can see on the screen. And now we've taken that and brought this program to life with 3 kind of major findings from the research here.
So the first finding really illustrates the focus of their research, which is they found that we've been using the word linchpin ourselves, that really the leaders are the linchpin in employees being able to find and achieve that work-life alignment. It's not the employee themselves, it's not the organization, it's their direct manager, the person they report to, that really has tremendous impact on this aspect. And one of the things they affect with these 4 behaviors, which Steve will cover in detail, is when these are specifically and consciously demonstrated, engagement, retention, and well-being increase, that we see gains there. And finally, another really interesting point from their research is what they identified as a 50% gap between how well managers think they support their employees in achieving work-life alignment and what their employees think that their managers do. And it's not a gap in the manager's favor. And this really illuminates the need for managers and leaders to pay attention to this and to really get real about what they think they're doing and the impact they're actually having and how they can improve that impact and hopefully close that gap to the positive. So this is also data directly from the research that Ellen and Leslie did. And it just talks about the different areas when organizations do not promote flexibility, when managers do not have an approach to supporting flexibility and the achievement of alignment for their employees. This is the results. Issues that happen in the home and family life of the employee, things that happen with the organization, such as absenteeism, turnover, etc., and real true physical effects that can happen for that employee from the stress that occurs. So their research has shown that all 3 of these areas are indeed improved through the deployment of these four behaviors. And one thing
we knew this academically speaking for a long time. Now we're seeing CEOs and leaders saying we want to focus on well-being and burnout. So these have been here for a long time. This isn't a new finding, but now organizations are open to having conversations internally about it.
Yes. So what we did for our program is we took their research, as Steve mentioned, a very academic, high-level stuff, and we distilled it and made it something that everybody can relate to. And we took those 4 behaviors and gave them definitions and labels so that they would be memorable and meaningful for any worker in any environment. And we also looked to address all of those 3 areas of negative impact and incorporate that so that leaders and learners who take this program understand the positive effect they can have through these. The first behavior is connect. The first thing that employers or that leaders can do is connect with their employees, make that personal connection where ultimately the employee feels comfortable talking to the manager about things that are going on, where things might be lacking for them, just opening that line of communication where they can express what's happening with them so that the manager knows about that. If a manager seems closed off to it, doesn't seem to care, they're not going to be able to have those conversations. The second behavior is what we're calling respond. So this is about how the manager responds to when they hear of information from their employee. When an employee comes to them with some sort of conflict or seems to be experiencing that, it's the actions that that manager takes in the moment to show their concern and their care. And that's one of the keys here, is employees feeling cared for. That's something from the research that seems so simple, but just that when an employee feels cared for, that goes a long way towards the positive effects. The third behavior is something we're calling rethink. So it's a larger scope where a manager is willing to rethink how work gets done and is open to ideas of flexibility and how work gets accomplished in terms of new processes and procedures, but something that benefits not only the employees, but the organization as well. The key here is not that the idea that everything has to be bent over backwards to accommodate the employee. The leader has a lot of responsibilities in a lot of directions, but it's that willingness to be creative, think outside that box, and be flexible in the moment or long-term that can really make a difference. And the fourth behavior is modeling. It's about how well a leader models behaviors that demonstrate a value of work-life alignment, not just for their employees, but for themselves, and how well they seem to juggle their work and their personal responsibilities will set a tone for how their employees respond to that as well. So these are the four behaviors that we address. And to do this, as Steve mentioned, we chose to go with a virtual learning program for this, with self-paced learning, which, as he said, was not in our bag of tricks at the time. But we thought, what better way to endorse work-life alignment than to have a program that allows learners to access it and do it when it works for them, to demonstrate that flexibility ourselves. And we partnered with Artisan Learning, a world-class e-learning development organization, to bring this to life. And we're really pleased with how it turned out. So from here, some details about our program, who it's designed for. Any managers at any level, from maybe first line supervisors to the executive level. This is who this is built for. It's in 6 self-paced learning modules, 1 for each of the behaviors, and then an introduction and an action planning module. They're about 90 minutes or so to complete. They can be done all at once in straight order. Each is about 15-20 minutes a piece, and it takes about 90 minutes for the whole thing, but it's built to be experienced as the learner, as it's convenient for the learner. Sorry, I misspoke about them being 90 minutes each. They're not. What's really cool about it is that the last module is action planning, and participants can create their action plan through a series of questions that they answer and prompts that they respond to, and then they can generate a PDF that they can download and save so that they have that information to take with them. We provide access a couple of different ways. We can host it on our LMS, or we can provide the SCORM file to our clients who want to host it on their own LMS. So we've made it flexible that way. And we also created a facilitator guide. So for organizations that want to run a post-learning workshop where they can get everybody in a room or on a Zoom call, all of the learners, and talk about specifically what it means in context with their organization. And so if it's, let's say, HR people running this workshop, they can learn what the concerns are of the people who are the learners. We don't want to set people up to be frustrated where they go, well, this all sounds great, but my organization would never allow this, or I don't have that. What we want to take the focus on is, what will your organization enable, and what can it enable, and what's possible? Because this research has shown even small gestures, little things that maybe don't seem too radical can really have a big impact. And we emphasize that throughout the program. And then,
Well, I was gonna say, with that in mind, I think we should just jump into the demo, and then anything else as we come up, Terry, let's kind of unpack this. I'm sure people want to
go right ahead.
So stop share. So let's see how. So I'm now going to go into our hosted version on our LMS to show you what a learner would see. Try that again. Sound share. Okay. So as Terry mentioned, this is six modules. It would start like this. So I'm going to play a few screens in each module so you get a sense of how this is and how it builds.
Most leaders understand that balancing work and personal demands can be challenging. Your employees know that as well. In this course, we call this idea work-life alignment. Work-life alignment means that the time and energy you dedicate to work and personal demands is proportional to your priorities and your organization's expectations. It is not just up to individual employees to make this happen, but also requires input from leaders and the will of the organization at large. Finding this alignment can take some effort from all involved, but research demonstrates that doing so has many benefits for both employees and the organization. You'll explore those in a moment, but first, let's see how you're currently doing with work-life alignment.
So let me orient you to this. So you can see on the left navigation, you can see the navigation screen. Everything's checked here because I've already gone through the course and it's been open, but you would see little locks. If it's not open yet, it needs to be done sequentially. So a learner can't just skip to the end if you want to make sure that they've done this. You can see that we've used animated video in this at the beginning. We'll be playing some videos throughout. In our research, we learned that this is a great way to model and show what we're talking about and what this means. So I'm going to just play the next couple slides so you get a sense of how we set this up front and how a learner will be using the time to reflect for themselves and how this makes a difference for them.
Think of a time when you needed to make a change to the amount of time and energy you dedicated to your work and personal matters. Maybe you added a baby to your family, or your child care needs changed. Maybe you moved to a new home with a different commute. Maybe you needed to tend to an elderly relative or friend, or maybe you took on a new endeavor, like going back to school or pursuing a passion. Whatever the situation, enter a short description, then select Next.
So you'll see there's a lot of areas where we have somebody reflect like we would in a classic. What does this mean for me? This could be, had my grandmother living with me and help somebody
Now
start to think
the
about
impact
that
situation
you're a manager,
had on
but
you
you're
at
also an
work
employee
and
too, and this
personally.
matters.
For example, maybe you worried more, slept less, became less productive or made mistakes, let down your team or your customers, became irritable or sad, spent less time with friends and family, or even thought about quitting your job altogether. List all of the ways your situation impacted you, then select Submit.
So you can imagine we'll go through and kind of have somebody think about, well, what happened with me? What did this look like? As you'll see in the left navigation, then we go through kind of this life cycle of an employee to help explain, what happens in work-life alignment, but it's very interactive. Each module, each kind of section, somebody is reflecting and doing some interactive exercises. Then we talk about the organization stress cost there. We lay out the 4 behaviors as Terry's talked about and explain them, and then we'll be building on those for each module. And then afterwards, as you can see on the left navigation here, employee's going to rate how their manager does these things and how they do them themselves through this workflow. And I'll show you what that looks like in module 2. So that's how module 1 kind of lays out to help somebody realize as a manager that they really do make a difference and why this is important. Then when we get into module 2, refresh here.
What would you suggest Jovita do?
So in this case, we go
This is
through a
Jovita.
scenario with a manager, Jovita, and you'll see Jovita throughout the rest of this program. We'll be playing out different scenarios with her employees and then with one of her peers as well.
She is also learning how to help her employees with work-life alignment. She rated herself on the same statements you did in the first module. She took the extra step of asking her employees to rate her as well. When she compared the results, she immediately noticed how much her employees' perspectives differ from her own. Overall, leaders see themselves as more supportive than employees do. There's a perceptual gap between what supervisors believe they are doing and how employees see them. Jovita's scores reflect this trend. This training is designed to help leaders recognize the gaps and increase supportive behaviors to close this gap. At the end of this program, you'll have an opportunity to ask these questions of your own employees to identify your current perception gaps so you can focus your efforts to apply what you've learned.
So as Terry mentioned up front, there are 4 specific behaviors, and later on, we're going to share with you a link to all the research if that's important to you. But this research comes from this body of work in social science research called FSSB, Family Supportive Supervisor Behaviors. And it's been studied by many social science researchers for a couple of decades. And originally, there was a 14-item set of measures to understand the FSSB behaviors. We got those 14, or the professors did, down to these 4, and we've created the 4 to be actionable in a workplace setting. So these 4, we've stayed true throughout the program, and we're very specific and behavior-based about what behaviors does it take to connect, respond, rethink, and model. And as I mentioned, people are, the learner in this are evaluating themselves and their leaders on how well they do that.
Let's start by watching Jovita in action. Today, she needs to talk with Francis about some errors he's been making, and she could use your help. Take a look at Jovita's notes. Select the Personnel folder in Jovita's hands to learn more.
This is an example of a first exercise that a learner would go through, where they're going to click on this. They're going to look and see about Francis and what's happening with Francis's performance. And we're going to play out how Jovita and Francis have a conversation. There are a few places in the program where we play out sort of a before and after. This is what you might do if you're not thinking or having skills to this. And then after somebody reflects, this is what success looks like afterwards.
Take a moment to watch and listen to Jovita and Francis as she shares her feedback.
Francis, we have to talk about your reports. I don't know what's going on with you, but you're making so many mistakes. Report after report has missing information, wrong numbers, and mistake after mistake. This can't keep happening.
This replicates what an employee might be thinking and not saying.
How do you think Jovita did? Select your answer, then select Submit.
So again, many times where somebody is thinking about something, this is sort of dependent feedback here. If somebody says great or not well, it will prompt you to.
If you want numbers, I'll give you
about
numbers. I guess only your reports matter.
It seems Jovita may be fulfilling the task of getting the reports done correctly, but she hasn't taken the time to connect with Francis and see if there's more going on than missing numbers and some mistakes. Let's rewind and see if you can help Jovita do a better job.
So then we help somebody, again, think
Jovita was right to talk to Francis
think
about the
about
problem,
what a
but she
conversation
definitely
should
could
look
have
like.
handled their interaction better. Select Jovita's words for tips on how she could have used the opportunity to better connect with Francis while still giving him the feedback he needed.
So you can see in this case, for example, I can't go to the next slide until I've done the work here. So in this case, we're going to look at each of the statements that Jovita made, help unpack what that looks like, what some insights to that. And then in this case, we help her build a new scenario for what a successful conversation would
What would
look
you
like.
suggest
I'm gonna
Jovita
skip ahead
do to
here.
open up the interaction differently? Pick what you think is the best choice, then select Submit.
So in this case, the learner would say, well, what should that conversation have looked like? And when we talk about connect, we're not just talking about connect with an employee about day-to-day work responsibilities. This is connection at a higher level about opening up for I'm part of helping you navigate work-life alignment. I want to connect with you in such a personal way that we can talk about what it means for you to be successful and stay here in the organization. So in this case, we're going to kind of build a scenario where the person will.
Think about the information Jovita has. What do you think she could say to explain the situation?
The person will decide what she should say next.
Help Jovita think about questions she could ask Francis. Great. You've helped Jovita prepare. Let's see how things go with Francis this time.
Is everything okay, Francis? I'm noticing errors on your reports.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jovita. What did I do wrong?
I've noticed errors on 3 out of your last 4 reports. You don't typically make any mistakes. Is there something you need to help you get back on track?
Actually, I've been taking care of my sick mother, and my wife has been ill too. I'm not getting much sleep. I'm sorry about the reports. I'll try to be more careful. My mind has just been preoccupied lately.
No matter what you selected for Jovita to say to start the conversation, you definitely helped her connect with Francis and move in a more positive direction towards solving the problem.
So hopefully this gives you a sense of how we help a manager understand to connect and not just say, you should connect better, but it really talks about exactly how one would do that from a behavior-based research perspective. So now I'll move on to respond. Terry, any questions as I tee up this next module? Or any comments, I mean?
No, Steve, you're doing great. Just that module emphasizes, and as I mentioned previously, the idea that employees feel cared for. And that to me from the research was a really big aha, that simple concept.
Great. So in then the respond module, we're helping to teach not just first, actually, is you need to respond. One of the things we learned in the research is that, leaders punt all the time and say, go to HR, I don't know, I'll get back with you. And they're kind of just avoid it because they're not quite sure what to do. So this is teaching that you need to respond, and specifically, again, how do you respond? And we do that through setting up what we think is a real life scenario. So here's Jovita again with another one of her employees, Zoe.
Jovita has bought into the power of work-life alignment for herself and her employees. She has been building a foundation with her employees by using the skills from Module 2, Connect. Recently, though, her employee, Zoe, had a unique situation come up. Watch the video closely, as you'll be asked questions about it ahead. Play the video to listen in as Jovita talks with Zoe and tries to connect and respond.
So I'm going to play this video because we use this throughout the next 3 or 4 modules, and then we help them think about how this interaction would be different. And then at the end, they actually play it out different so that we get to a more healthy response.
Hey, Zoe, how are things going?
Good. How's your week?
Other than that Pearson project, it's been okay.
Yeah, that one is a doozy. Hey, I wanted to ask you a favor. My brother is returning from deployment unexpectedly tomorrow. I really want to be there to greet him and give him a big hug.
Wow, that must be such a great surprise. I get wanting to be there.
Yes, but it's at noon, which means I would need to leave work by 10 to make the drive. I have the time off I can use, but I'm mostly wanting to talk about the numbers you need for the Pearson project. You said you needed them by 2 tomorrow in your email this morning? Yeah, I have meetings all day today and also in the morning. I wondered if I could get them to you later.
I can see where those meetings have stacked up and would make this challenging.
Yes, it was tight without this great surprise, and I can't tell you how important it is to be there when he arrives. Could I possibly get them to you Monday? Tomorrow's Friday, so that would give me the weekend.
It would be important to anyone to be there. Unfortunately, I need them tomorrow, so over the weekend won't work. I know you're disappointed, but I have to have those numbers. You know how tricky this project is.
I know.
I need to think about this. Maybe there's another answer, but I don't know what it is. I'll get back to you later.
Okay, I guess I'll just wait to hear from you.
Yes, I'll get back to you as soon as I can.
So you can see we try to set up a real life scenario here. In developing this course, we actually tapped 6 of our more advanced, larger, sophisticated clients to be on an advisory group to help us think about and vet the content. And they helped us think through things like what would a scenario look like that's realistic, and then we can play this out. So you can see in this case, we're playing this out, but then we talk specifically about, well, what does respond look like?
Read through the various ways leaders can connect and respond with their employees. Select any you think Jovita did well during her interaction with Zoe. If needed, you can also go back and re-watch the video by selecting the play arrow. When you've made your choices, select Submit.
So in this case, we're helping them think about, what are good behaviors and skills. So I'm going to watch this and say, I think she did these items pretty well. Let me see. And then we submit and people get feedback. Then we move to, well, how would a conversation look in a very practical way? And this is what
When
you
you
would
respond,
role
you
play
are providing support to the
in-class
employee in
workshop.
relation to their work and personal needs on a daily basis. Another way to think of it is when an employee has a problem, you respond in a supportive way. Zoe's situation was a short-term problem that was affecting her and potentially her work. Jovita had an opportunity to apply positive respond behaviors. To respond more effectively, it's helpful to focus on the beginning, middle, and end of an interaction. Select each item to learn more.
So in the rest of this module, we're helping them really unpack and think about, well, what would the beginning of a conversation look like if somebody comes to me? What would a middle look like? And how do I close this up? And then we layer that in. So we talk about the procedure of this. And then you can see on the left too, we talk a little bit about not just what the conversation looks like, but how do you have it? And we specifically talk about empathy. And we were fortunate to be able to license a video that is also an animated video of Brene Brown being the voiceover, talking about the difference between empathy and sympathy. So in this module, we're talking about that you have to respond. How do you respond? In what way? And then also why it's important to use empathy in this work. Then once we teach them how to respond, we start to think about rethinking work. So let me move to that next module.
Steve, I just want to add one thing here. We talk about family,
Select the play arrow
family
to
supportive
follow along as
behaviors. And one thing we consciously did was just not make this about mothers and children. And although that's a very common reason why employees might want flexibility, parents and having to deal with things with their children, we wanted to show the range of family ties, of options, of family responsibilities that can come up, or personal responsibilities, not just family, that can come up in an employee situation. So we do have a mother and child piece in there. I don't know if it comes up in the demo, but just know that we were conscious about that.
Yeah. So at the beginning of this module, we do a little bit of knowledge check here. We realize that people may come and go, and now we're getting into the middle of the program.
Connect
so they start
and
with a little bit of
two of the
refresh
behaviors
on what's
key to
the difference
reducing the
between
negative
connect and
effects of
respond.
tension between work and personal life. Consider the items and decide whether each one falls under connect or respond. Drag each item to the behavior you think corresponds, then select submit.
We're doing a little bit of reinforcement here, having somebody think through this. This isn't a pass-fail. We're helping somebody sort. You can see there's 10 different items here, and then they loosely get feedback about how well they did. 50% for me. Yay, yay, yay. So then we move into what does rethink look like?
In addition to connect and respond, you may find opportunities to rethink how, when, and or where work in your department gets done as you look to support better work-life alignment. This can involve consideration of current policies, work structures, and other aspects of company culture. How do you know when it's time to rethink? Perhaps you notice employee well-being declining and burnout increasing. Maybe your turnover numbers are up, or employees seem less engaged and satisfied with their jobs. Employees may even directly ask for a change in current policies, work structures, or other aspects of company culture in order to improve alignment for themselves. Or you may just proactively keep the idea in mind.
So we're helping managers realize that they can make a difference in some small ways, and we give them a model some areas to think about what that would
When
look like.
Jovita heard about Rethink, she didn't think she could actually make changes at her workplace. After all, she is just one person in the organization, and the policies and procedures of how things are done have been in place for years. But she decided she would at least be open to the idea. What if she could imagine some tweaks and changes that would allow employees better work-life alignment while maintaining productivity? How could it help her better support Frances, Zoe, and the rest of her team? She decided to break Rethink into focus areas to help her be more strategic. Select each item to learn more about ways to rethink.
So we help them think about, what does redesigning work look like? What might that look like? How do you involve thinking about that? How might you engage others in this work? What might you ask your employees in terms of, part of rethinking might just even be having employees participate in what they can and can't do. And then, where you can accommodate. The other thing we teach in this module is we talk about objections, and we also talk about being able to say no actually that was in the respond module. Is it's okay to say no, that this isn't about saying yes, it's also about how we interact and engage in this work. And then once we kind of tee these things up, one of the things we learned clearly is you have to start to think about, well, what are the objections? Amanda's saying, is it safe to really go into HR or my boss and say, can we make these things happen? So we play that objection clinic.
Jovita needs to think through the likeliest objections from her boss and HR. You can help Jovita out by considering one of the changes she would like to propose to her boss. Note the current policy and Jovita's suggestions. Then, for each of the objections Jovita is concerned about, fill in ways each could be addressed. When you're ready, select Submit.
So we help them think through sort of a mindset shift on how you might go through this work. I want to make sure we have time at the end and we can wrap up well. So let's go into model. We got just enough time to do model in action. And then if you do have any questions, feel free to put those into the chat. So then in model, very key part of what we found in the research is that a leader doing this makes a large impact to say it's safe to do it in your workforce.
As you did the previous activity and got the feedback.
So in model, we begin by talking about what does model look like. We have a scenario of two different managers and an email that they would write and kind of which is a model behavior and which isn't. But then we talk here about objections, because I think, and I just wanted to highlight this section, which I think is a unique way to think about why modeling is important.
Feedback. Did you feel objections rising? You're not alone. Craig approached Jovita because he noticed a change in her and her team. He saw people being less stressed and more engaged and a rise in their productivity. Yet he also saw them working reasonable hours and Jovita advocating for more work-life alignment. She explained how she had been employing Connect, Respond, Rethink, and Model. Craig's response was telling Jovita why this won't work. It's their culture, he can't change things, and he wants to keep his job. How could Jovita coach him, especially when it comes to being a model for his employees? Fill in a response for each of Craig's objections, then select Submit.
So how we got at this without sort of lecturing to the employee that you can do it, it's okay. It's through Jovita saying to her peer, okay, what could you do? This is our culture. What's your mindset around these things? So you can type in these items. After you type in each of these, you submit, it gives you some insight for each of these. And that's how we get at model, is to help you identify sort of what some of the model behaviors are. And I'll share that real quick. And then what these objections are. And then after Connect, Respond, Rethink, and Model, then we move into action planning.
Think about the last year. Have you been a
Here's
good
what some of
model
the
for
model
work-life
behaviors
alignment? Look over this list and select all items you're guilty of doing. When you're finished, select Submit.
So this helps somebody realize, oh, am I doing these items myself? Am I working while on vacation, but then I tell my employee I shouldn't do that? Am I hiding, my times where I might, need time off during the day and I just didn't tell anybody I was doing something personal, versus making it okay to say, hey, if your work's done, you need to take an hour off to do a doctor's appointment based on the type of job you have. If it works, that's great. Go forth and do it. Having a manager show these things and make it okay. Then in action planning, once somebody's gone through the whole program, is really applying this in a very planful way. So let me walk you through, as Terry mentioned, this action plan, which produces a PDF action plan output.
In addition to working your plan and
So what we do in action planning is for each of the modules, connect, respond, rethink, and model, we have them think about times when it was easy or hard, and then to actually write specific action plans. And as they type this in, then when you go through the workflow, it'll produce a PDF. The connect and respond are done in the same format, and I'll show you connect right now. And then rethink and model are done slightly different, because in connect and respond, it's a lot about kind of what's in your head about this for you and your personality. You know, what's it like for me and my personality to connect and respond with somebody? What's easy or hard for me? On the rethink and model, that's a lot about organizational items. You know, what's a challenge here within the company to rethink and model? And so this sort of workflow helps somebody first refresh about the behavior, what it is for that module and what it needs, then to identify what's easy or hard, and then to type that in. So let me show you that.
remember, Connect is about listening to employee issues, learning about employees' personal situations and needs, and making them feel supported and comfortable sharing their issues and challenges so that you can best partner to address them. Here are some specific ways to connect.
So we walk through the 10 specific behaviors, and let me show you what those look like at the end here. And then we help them think about what's easy and challenging.
Think about how you connect. We all have things that are harder or easier for us. Knowing these will help you think through your plan for ways to connect. Consider each of the ways to connect you've just reviewed and decide which ones are easy for you and which are a challenge. Drag each one to the appropriate category, then select Submit.
So this is, again, a reinforcement mechanism. It's helping you realize these are the behaviors I should be doing. It helps you understand what's easy or hard for you.
Now review the two lists you created and decide which actions you will consciously start doing more frequently over the next 30 days. Start with the ones that come easy to you, then work to add some that are more of a stretch. You'll soon notice that your skill and confidence are building, and your improved ability to connect will begin to make a difference for you and your team. List 3 to 5 ways you'll try to connect more effectively to employees' work-life alignment issues over the next 30 days, then select Submit.
So this, whatever's typed in here is what will go into the action plan. And you need to identify 3 items. If you just do one and say submit, it'll say, no, we really would like you to put 3 different items in here. So we do this for connect, respond in one sort of format, and then it goes through, it's saying, way to go, here you go. And then we do rethink and model. Then when we get to the end, it allows you to produce an action plan.
You now know how leaders like you can positively impact employees' well-being and engagement. While you've taken the first step simply by completing these modules and learning the 4 behaviors, this training is only useful if you apply it. What happens after you end this module is the real lesson. Apply what you've learned and work the plan. It's time to get started. You're on your way to creating greater work-life alignment for you and your employees. You'll need a few items to help you do this. First, use your plan to begin creating more positive results over the next 30 days. Select My Action Plan to download a PDF of your strategic steps and get started today.
So there's a whole bunch of resources that we produce at the end of this. I'm going to stop going through the actual workflow here, go back to the PowerPoint, and we'll close up with that and kind of talk to you about what the post e-learning module program looks like and how one would access this.
Okay, thanks, Steve. I mentioned this previously, the facilitator kit. Now that you've seen generally how the modules go, it gives you more context as to what this kit contains. It's a complete kit for a facilitator to have a workshop after the fact. It includes a PowerPoint, a script, certain resources like a bibliography with all the research that's been cited in this. There's lots of stats and details that we didn't show you, but research for somebody who wanted to do more. There's a sample action plan so the facilitator understands what the takeaway was for the learners. And we have a range of additional follow-up steps. How can you make this stick in your organization? What, as an HR leader, can you do? What can you investigate? Things from having some small task forces from among the learners to come up with new creative ways to address this in your organization, and several other suggestions that we make that could hopefully spark some ideas for how to move this forward. And as Steve also mentioned, you get 3 PDFs through as a learner through this. You get that action plan, which you can take away and reference, and the goal is to act on it within 30 days so that you use things right away. The second thing that we have that they can download is an employee survey template. And we talked about identifying that gap between the managers and the employees' perceptions. This has questions in it that a leader can administer however they want. If they wanted to make a survey monkey, they just want to incorporate these into one-on-one conversations, however they want to gather that information. We provide a survey document that they could even just copy or email or print out. And the third thing is a form for tracking your efforts as a learner. This is something that was actually deployed in the original research that informed this program. It's a little chart where you set a goal of your number of employees times 2, and over 2 weeks, that's the number of times you want to do some sort of behavior that demonstrates or some sort of action that demonstrates one of the 4 behaviors. So as you can see from this chart on the slide, there's just a place to make tallies. And the idea being, the more you consciously do this, the more you see this in action, the more it'll become your habit as a leader. So this is to directly reinforce that habit.
So if this is something that you think would work in your organization, and we realize that some organizations do have their own LMS and do a lot of e-learning and some don't. So we have 2 options for you to access this program. One is what we call our managed service option. So Dion Leadership, we can host this through the LMS. You would have a login very similar to what you saw me do today. We send you if you want to buy 50 seats for 50 managers, you get 50 access points, tokens, if you will. You can send the website and the code to that participant. They immediately just click on it, put the code in, you put a username and password, they have access to the course. On the back end of this, we can see if the person's taken the whole course, when they're done, and that's one way to be able to access this program. For those organizations that have their own LMS, this is a SCORM compliant set of files. We've tested it on many different LMSs, and you can purchase a license agreement based on the size of your organization and how many managers that you have. And it's real easy upload to put it onto your LMS and use it. In either case, you can buy this optional facilitator kit that Terry mentioned that provides this experience for you internally to facilitate this program. And with purchase of 100 seats or more, we're just providing that facilitation kit. And wanted to share those 2 ways in which you could access this. So if this is of interest and you're not sure, kind of next steps would be, one is we created an infographic. If you just want to have conversations internally, we're going to put in the chat right now your ability to sort of to get the link to download this infographic, which pulls together these 4 behaviors, some of these statistics we've shared today, and why managers are an important part of this. We hope we're creating a movement here that organizations are saying, we got to stop and think about this and equip managers. And this may give you what you need to have a better conversation. The second is if you want to review the research on this, as we talked about, on our Work-Life Aligned website, as we mentioned, we've kind of created a brand with this. There's a specific research page that cites all of the academic research here, and we pointed you to that. And then third is, we don't want to just send this to everybody, but if this is of interest to you, we mentioned in our setup of this that we'd be happy to give you a complimentary free trial of the full class for you to take, or for you to, maybe sit with the manager and take. We don't want to bother you about it. So if you just want to answer the poll question, if you'd like to receive a free trial of this e-learning course, just say yes, and we'll be sending it out to you over the next 24 hours. And you'll get a sense to experience it from beginning to end, what a learner would experience. And then last is, if you want to talk about this subject more, we'd be happy to have a meeting with you or other key leaders in your organization if you need sponsorship with this. We realize this is one of many kind of behaviors an organization needs to create better flexibility. If you're looking to do other training on accountability or feedback or support other items, we have that in our catalog as well, or you just want to better unpack kind of this research. We can also get Ellen or Leslie as the professors on the call. They're happy to join that as a part with the partnership we have. They also do keynote speeches on this topic as well and talk about the work and research directly. So if you wanted to do something broader with the senior audience, to kind of get awareness of why we need to create work-life alignment and what the business outcomes are and the employee outcomes are, we're happy to support you in that as well. So we are at the end of our time today. If you do have any questions, feel free to let us know. You're welcome to use our Let's Talk email. Abby can set this up for you. You go on to our website and use our calendar function, and keep conversations and dialogue with us. Just wanted to close with letting you know that our next webinar will be in January. And it's on January 11th, and we are going to be doing a panel with 3 large organizations, asking them about their talent management challenges and their approaches for next year. And we're excited to have 3 different industries represented. We're going to have talent management leaders from Domino's, the largest pizza franchise, from Henry Ford Health Systems, a 40,000 plus person hospital system, and from AAA Life, to get professional services as well in the mix. And hopefully you can join us. It'll be at 11 o'clock on January 11th Eastern time. Please look for an invite on that shortly. So thanks again for your time and attention, and hopefully this sparks some good ideas. And thanks for joining me, Terry.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, everybody.
Have a good new year. Bye-bye.